Hi, this is Simon Moon from Simon Moon Music, and it's part 4 in the series of videos on how to do music production with Bitwig Studio. Today I want to talk about modulation a little bit, and in order to pick a very simple example, we'll try some the typical ducking effect that we have on modern EDM tracks. I'll show you what I mean in a second. You'll recognize that immediately, but first of all we need a sound to apply this on, and I want to do this with that lead sound we have. So I would like to start with recording this real quick. Let's see, let's listen. I just want to listen to the track one more time. Okay, so. Okay, let's see what it sounds like. Okay, I just make some corrections with that latency. Sometimes it's hard to get the timing right. Okay, I want this note to be a bit shorter. Okay, and in order to make it even a little bit more interesting, we could add some additional notes. Maybe making use of the fact that this sound has a very strong sliding characteristic. Could work. Okay, it needs to be longer. Very good. Now I want to loop this section only because obviously here is nothing to modulate, and since we want to concentrate on modulation, we pick this section here. So now we need to go to the insert track of this FM lead here, and one thing I would like to do first is I want to shape the sound a bit further, and in EDM tracks it's important to make this the sounds sound really big, and in order to achieve this we'll add a reverb, but this time not in order to introduce room information so much to that sound. It's more about sound design this time, and for this I don't want a lot of early reflections. I want to concentrate on the hall that comes after the sound actually hit. Increase the release time to make the hall even longer, and well, let's tweak this a little bit, and I think you can instantly notice how this sound becomes much wider and much bigger. Take up the width a bit because I want to add real reverb in terms of room information later, and this might just add up to something too big. Okay, so now we have a big sound. And in order to somehow bring this wet signal from the reverb better together with the original sound, I'll add a little bit of distortion. Plus, oh, what happened? Plus, by adding distortion, I also introduce additional high frequency information. So there are additional higher frequency partials generated by this distortion plugin. That's what distortion is mostly about. Apart from changing the characteristics, the dynamics of the original sound a little bit. Okay, I'm just trying to find out what this sounds like. Okay, you can already hear that. It starts to sound huge. I take off a little bit of the volume so that we don't get blown away. So this is the high frequency information, these high frequency partials that get introduced. You can hear that, and they are much too prominent. So I cut out some of these very high frequencies. And now I turn the mix down again, so that more of the original dry signal comes through. Here's without the distortion. Here's with. Still want to take off a little bit. Drive. It must be totally exciting. Watch me do this. It's only gonna take a couple of seconds. Should be almost done. Okay, let's leave it the way it is now. I just isolate this track real quick. Okay, that should do. And now, the main issue, modulation. I put the modulation before the reverb, and Bitwig comes with a couple of containers. That's what it says here. And a couple of modulators. We could put the whole modulation sequence into a container, but I don't want to get this, have this to be too complicated now. We simply pick the so-called LFO modulation, and what it does is, you see, these are LFOs. LFO stands for low frequency oscillator, so they're basically oscillating, and the way they're oscillating depends on the kind of waveform you select. So we have two LFOs here in this plugin, and if I change the waveform, then you can see you can turn this into a square type of wave, and so on and so on. But since we want to do a volume modulation, we try to approximate that ducking effect as good we can by using this sawtooth here. And what I want to do is every time at each quarter note, so I have to set this to time beat, and now it's quarter note. At the beginning of each quarter note, I want the volume of the sound to be tremendously ducked. And in order to achieve this, I need another thing here. I need some means to actually be able to reduce volume. And there is something in Bitwig, a tool called tool, and here you can see that it has a number of parameters. And the most important thing here for our purpose now is amplitude. So if I take this modulator and click it, it starts to flash blue. This means that now it's expecting me to tell Bitwig which parameters it is supposed to modulate. And I want at the start of every quarter beat to have this ducked. So I turn this to the left, but now it goes in both directions. In order to prevent this, I click this little plus minus symbol here. Oh, sorry, that doesn't work. I have to get out of this mode first, and then I can change this from symmetric to a one-sided kind of LFO modulation. Okay, let's listen to what it sounds like. So you can hear already what I'm aiming at, I guess. But the effect is much too drastic, and we'll change this and tweak it a little bit. So what you probably notice is that this sawtooth waveform is much too coarse to approximate the typical ducking effect, that pumping sound in EDM music. So we'll try to compensate for what this sawtooth is doing with this second LFO, and I hope this is going to work. Okay, now let's see how these are aligned. You can see that every time this sawtooth goes up, our square waveform goes down, and I want the opposite thing to happen, and a little bit, just a touch after the sawtooth goes up. So by changing the phase, I'm actually moving the position of these squares on the x-axis. Okay, sounds complicated, but it's actually just moving this thing around, and then you can see that the alignment of sawtooth to the square waveform changes. Okay, and now obviously I have to make use of this modulator, and what I want to make this do is actually to compensate a little bit for what the to increase what the sawtooth is doing. So I decrease the amplitude a little bit further, but only with respect to this LFO2 here. And now let's listen to what this does. And another thing I'm going to tweak right now is this depth wheel here, which actually changes the intensity of how the LFO modulates amplitude. Okay? I think that goes in the right direction. You get the basic idea, I think. And now, one additional thing I would like to do to make this even a bit more interesting, it's just an idea. We can, of course, modulate not only one parameter by each of these LFOs, you can modulate various ones. And now what I want to do is I make this the panning oscillate with this square wave here. Not too much because it's a weird effect, obviously, and I want the whole thing actually to go a little bit more into the right channel, so I pan it regardless. Okay, and this has a wet-dry mix wheel as well, so if I turn this down, this is the original sound, and this is the one with our LFO modulation. And in order to complete the sound, all I want to do now is add the actual room information to give it a feeling that this lead sound is in the same room as the bass pads. This would obviously be too much, but a little bit should actually sound quite good. Okay? So, this is it for today. We were talking about modulation, and I go back to that insert channel real quick. We have inserted an LFO modulation and used the low frequency oscillators it provides to modulate the amplitude and the pan parameters of this tool here. One thing I should probably mention is that this only works if you include the plugin which parameters you want to modulate into this effects chain here. So if you open this, you can see that the tool is inside this box, and that's pretty important because otherwise you cannot modulate. If I add another tool here, the second tool is by no means reachable for modulating these parameters. See? And that's why it's important to place it inside. You have to click on this effects box here, and then you can see this plus sign here. And if we move this tool into this effects chain, then we also get the option to modulate these parameters. Okay, so just to explain this. And I think we're done for today. Thanks for watching. If you like this, follow me, and hope to see you in the next tutorial. Bye bye.